Picture this. You're in an attic, the air thick with the sweet, papery scent of forgotten time. Sunlight streams through a single grimy window, illuminating dancing dust motes. Your fingers, smudged with gray, flip through a crate of old vinyl records. The sleeves are worn, the corners softened like old memories. You pass by familiar names, Cash, Williams, Klein, and then your hand stops. There it is, a record sleeve featuring a man whose handsomeness is both striking and gentle. He's in a sharp suit, tailored and crisp, a stark contrast to the rustic image of many of his contemporaries. His smile is not a flashy grin for the camera. It's warm, genuine, as inviting as a summer evening in Tennessee after a cleansing rain. That man is Roy Drusky, a voice so impossibly smooth it could melt butter on a cold biscuit. But here's the thing you have to understand. Roy wasn't just another singer with a golden voice. For decades, he was the heart of the Grand Ole Opry, the steady, guiding hand that led millions of radio listeners and live audience members through nights of soaring twang and gut-wrenching heartache. He was the institution's master of ceremonies, its gentlemanly anchor in a sea of rhinestones and cowboy hats. Yet, when the final curtain fell and the lights dimmed on his life, the world that had once adored him seemed to forget him almost overnight. His name faded from the marquees and the radio waves, his legacy tucked away like the very record you're holding in your hands. Back in the 1930s, America was a nation on its knees, clawing its way out of the vast, hollow pit of the Great Depression. Life was a relentless grind, a daily exercise in making something from almost nothing. In the rural South, this reality was etched into the very landscape. Families turned to the radio, that magical wooden box in the parlor, for a sliver of escape, a portal to a world filled with gospel hymns that promised a better life hereafter, hillbilly tunes that spoke to their present struggles, and serialized stories of hard luck lives that mirrored their own. Atlanta, Georgia, was a bustling hub in this southern tapestry, a city where factory smokestacks hummed a tune of progress, while church steeples overflowed on Sundays with songs of salvation. It was into this world of stark contrasts of grit and grace that Roy Frank Drusky Jr. came into the world on June 22, 1930. His father, Roy Sr., was a sharecropper, a man whose quiet strength was forged in the red clay soil he worked. His hands were calloused, his back perpetually sore, but he provided for his family with a stoic sense of duty. The cruel randomness of life, however, struck the family a devastating blow. Roy Sr. succumbed to a sudden illness when young Roy was just 5 years old, leaving a void that was both emotional and economic. His sudden absence plunged the family into an even more precarious existence. That left young Roy and his siblings under the singular care of their mother, a devout woman of unshakable faith. She was the family's anchor, her resilience the force that kept them from drifting apart. Her sanctuary, and soon Roy's, was the local church where she played the piano. For the Drusky family, music wasn't just entertainment or a Sunday obligation. It was a lifeline. It was solace, a way to fill the cavernous, empty spaces left by loss and poverty. Roy would later recall, in a rare interview, archived at the Country Music Hall of Fame, the image of his mother's fingers, nimble and sure, dancing over the ivory keys during Sunday services. Her clear, steady voice would lift in praise, soaring above the congregation, a sound of pure, unvarnished hope. "She taught me that music could heal," he'd say, his voice thick with the memory. "It was the first and most important lesson I ever learned." Little did she know in those humble church services she wasn't just comforting her flock. She was planting the seeds for a career that would one day echo through the hallowed sacred halls of Nashville. Roy's early years were defined by this blend of hardship and harmony. The family struggled mightily, and Roy, taking on a sense of responsibility beyond his years, began working odd jobs as a boy. He delivered newspapers before dawn, the canvas bag slung over his small shoulder, and shined shoes on street corners, learning early about the value of a dollar earned through sweat. School was a mixed bag for him. He was intelligent and quick-witted, but his mind was restless, prone to drifting from the dry facts in textbooks to the vibrant sounds emanating from the family radio. Country music was undergoing a powerful evolution, morphing from its raw folk roots into a more polished, commercial sound, thanks to trailblazing pioneers like Hank Williams, whose voice dripped with raw honky-tonk pain, and Eddie Arnold, the Tennessee plowboy, whose smooth croon hinted at a more sophisticated future for the genre. Roy soaked it all in. He would sit close to the radio, his ear pressed against the speaker's fabric, humming along to the broadcast from WSM in Nashville, the signal carrying the magic of the Grand Ole Opry over hundreds of miles. He dreamed of that stage, of a life beyond the red clay streets and limited opportunities of his Atlanta neighborhood. By the time he was a teenager, he had acquired a second-hand guitar and was tinkering with it constantly, his fingers awkwardly finding the chords. His voice, even then, was beginning to show hints of the velvety, resonant baritone that would one day become his unmistakable trademark. But dreams, especially for a young man of his generation, often had to wait. The long shadow of World War II still lingered over the country, and the Korean War was looming on the horizon. A sense of national duty was ingrained in the youth. So, like many of his peers, Roy put his musical aspirations on hold and enlisted in the U.S. Navy right after graduating from high school in 1948. He was stationed on ships patrolling the vast, lonely expanses of the Pacific Ocean. For 2 years, the Navy instilled in him a profound sense of discipline and structure, but it also, unexpectedly, became his first real stage. During the long stretches of downtime, under star-filled skies that seemed to stretch into eternity, he'd pull out his guitar and sing for his shipmates. His smooth, calming croon was a balm for homesick souls, a welcome distraction from the monotony and tension of military life, a voice of home cutting through the endless roar of the ocean. Those nights under the stars, he once reflected in an interview for a small-town newspaper, singing for those fellas. That's when I just knew that music was my calling. It was what I was put here to do. Discharged from the Navy in 1950, a more worldly and determined Roy Drusky returned to Atlanta. With a practical mind shaped by his lean upbringing, he enrolled at Emory University, intending to study veterinary medicine and animal science. It was perhaps a nod to his rural roots and a sensible backup plan in case the fickle world of music didn't pan out. He saw a future in it, a steady, respectable life. But the call of the stage and the studio was a siren song he couldn't ignore. The structured world of academia felt confining, the lecture halls a pale substitute for the energy of a live audience. After just 1 year, the pull of music became too strong to resist. He dropped out of Emory, a decision that must have felt both terrifying and liberating, and dove headfirst into the local music scene. His first real break came not as a singer, but as a speaker. He landed a gig as a disc jockey at a small radio station, WCON, in nearby Decatur, Georgia. It was humble work in a burgeoning industry. He spun the popular records of the day, read advertisements for local businesses, and chatted with listeners who called in. This job was an invaluable training ground. It taught him microphone technique, sharpened his natural timing, and allowed him to cultivate a warm, charismatic, on-air persona. Roy's voice on the airwaves was like honey, smooth and inviting, drawing in a loyal following of fans who would tune in just to hear him introduce the next tune with his signature gentle charm. While working at the station, he didn't let his own musical ambitions idle. He formed a band called the Southern Ranch Boys, a group that became a popular fixture in the local circuit. They played smoky honky-tonks, lively VFW halls, and weekend fairs, honing their craft show by show. Their sound was a reflection of the era's evolving tastes, blending the raw emotion of traditional country with a touch of the pop polish that was creeping into the genre. It was in these settings that Roy learned to read a crowd, to connect with people from all walks of life through song. His distinctive voice and growing local popularity eventually caught the ear of a talent scout. In 1953, opportunity knocked loudly when he was offered a recording contract with Starday Records, which was later picked up for distribution by the major label Columbia Records. His debut single, Such a Fool, was released to little fanfare. It didn't set the charts on fire or make him an overnight star, but it was a crucial first step. It got him noticed by industry insiders in Nashville. The song itself was a harbinger of the style he would perfect, a heartfelt ballad of regret, delivered with a sincerity that elevated it beyond typical country fare. In a move that seems counterintuitive for an aspiring Southern country singer, Roy then relocated to Minneapolis, Minnesota, for another more prominent DJ stint at radio station KEVE. The frigid northern winter stood in stark contrast to the warmth of his Georgia upbringing and his on-air personality. Yet, it was a period of immense personal and professional growth. He continued to build his audience. His southern charm, a novelty in the snowy Midwest, it was there, in the cold heart of winter, that he met the enduring warmth of his life, Bobby. She was a steady, grounding presence, a woman who understood his ambition and supported him through the inevitable ups and downs of a musician's life. They married in 1955, forming a partnership that would last a lifetime. Soon after, they welcomed their son Tad, who would later follow in his father's musical footsteps, inheriting his talent and love for the craft. The late 1950s marked the turning point where Roy Drusky's persistence finally paid off, transforming him from a regional talent into a national star. The catalyst for this change was his move to Decca Records in 1958. At Decca, he was paired with the legendary producer Owen Bradley, one of the primary architects of the Nashville Sound. Bradley's genius was in recognizing that country music had the potential for massive crossover appeal if it shed some of its rougher, hillbilly edges. He envisioned a smoother, more sophisticated sound that could compete with pop music on the national airwaves. This Nashville sound was characterized by lush string arrangements, smooth background vocals from groups like the Jordanaires and the Anita Kerr Singers, and a production quality that was slick and polished. Owen Bradley heard in Roy Drusky the perfect vehicle for this new sound. Roy's voice wasn't gritty like a honky-tonk shouter. It was a rich, smooth baritone, capable of conveying deep emotion with an effortless, almost conversational grace. Bradley often compared him to the great pop crooners of the day, like Perry Como, for this very reason. Roy had that rare gift, Bradley was once noted as saying during an archived recording session. He could make a sad song feel comforting, like a friend patting your back. There was no strain, no artifice. It was just pure, honest feeling. Under Bradley's guidance, Roy released the ballad Another in 19. The song, a poignant tale of a man watching his love fall for someone else, was a masterpiece of the Nashville Sound. The gentle swell of strings and the soft coo of the background vocalists created a perfect cushion for Roy's heartfelt delivery. The single climbed to number 1, 2 on the Billboard country charts, and suddenly Roy Drusky was a name on everyone's lips. That same year, in a move that solidified his place in the country music firmament, Roy was invited to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry. For any country artist, this was the ultimate validation, the holy grail. The Opry, broadcast live every Saturday night from Nashville's iconic Ryman Auditorium, the mother church of country music, was more than just a stage show. It was a living, breathing tradition, a fraternity of stars stretching back to its inception in 1925. To be a member meant you had truly arrived. Roy's sophisticated style and gentlemanly demeanor fit perfectly into the Opry family, and he quickly became one of its most beloved and reliable performers. The 1960s became Roy's golden era, a decade of consistent chart success and artistic refinement. Hit after hit rolled out, each one further cementing his reputation as the premier crooner of country music. In 1960, he released Any More, a poignant plea to a departing lover that reached number 1, 3, and became one of his signature songs. The following year, Three Hearts in a Tangle climbed to number 1, 2, showcasing his incredible knack for navigating complex emotional narratives with subtlety and depth. But 1965 brought his biggest commercial success, a duet with the singer Priscilla Mitchell titled Yes, Mr. Peters. The song was a mini melodrama, a conversation between a boss and his secretary who are secretly in love but unable to act on their feelings. The call and response format was incredibly catchy, and the theme of forbidden office romance was just scandalous enough to be titillating for audiences of the time. The song shot to number 1 on the country charts, becoming a crossover hit and a staple of country radio for years to come. Priscilla, who was married to the acclaimed guitarist and singer Jerry Reed, shared an undeniable and natural chemistry with Roy. Their voices didn't just harmonize, they intertwined like vines on a trellis, creating a sound that was both intimate and heartbreaking. Roy proved he wasn't just a balladeer. In 1966, he released Peel Me a Nanner, a quirky, upbeat novelty tune about a man's hilarious conversation with his pet monkey. The song was a light-hearted romp that showcased his sense of humor and versatility, proving he could handle comedy just as deftly as he handled tragedy. This kind of range was essential for a long-term career at the Opry, where performers were expected to entertain in every sense of the word. Throughout the decade, he released albums prolifically. Titles like Any More with Roy Drusky, Songs of the Cities, and The Touch of Roy's Hand all reinforced his image as the sophisticated, urbane voice of country music. His albums were often concept-driven, with Songs of the Cities, for example, featuring tracks about Detroit, Kansas City, and other American metropolises, telling stories of love and loss against urban backdrops. This was a departure from the rural themes that dominated much of country music. His success led to extensive touring, taking him across the United States, Canada, and even overseas to Europe, where fans adored his gentlemanly stage presence and smooth as silk voice. Amidst his own recording success, Roy also continued to build his legacy as a songwriter. He had a gift for simple, powerful lyrics and memorable melodies. The great Faron Young scored a massive number, one hit with Roy's composition Alone with You, a classic country weeper that became one of Young's signature tunes. His songwriting prowess added another layer to his legacy, proving he was not just a great voice, but a complete musician. By the time the 1970s dawned, the landscape of country music was beginning to shift dramatically. But while his chart-topping days began to wane, Roy Drusky's importance within the genre only deepened. He solidified his role at the Grand Ole Opry, transitioning from merely a star performer to one of its most essential figures. He became a regular MC for segments of the show, the steady hand that guided the fast-paced live radio broadcast. For over 3 decades, his was the warm, resonant baritone that introduced legendary acts and nervous newcomers alike. His introductions were models of wit and warmth, his calm demeanor a reassuring presence both for the audience and for the artists waiting in the wings. His voice became as familiar and integral to the Opry experience as the iconic red barn backdrop or the sound of Roy Acuff's fiddle. The music itself was changing. The polished Nashville sound that had made Roy a star was being challenged by the raw, gritty outlaw movement, led by iconoclasts like Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson. Their music was stripped down, lyrically complex, and openly rebellious against the Nashville establishment. In this new climate, Roy's smooth, string-laden ballads began to sound to some like relics of a bygone era. His string of top 10 hits slowed to a trickle, yet Roy adapted with his characteristic grace. He signed with Mercury Records and continued to record, releasing tracks like 1974's Long, Long Texas Road, a song that incorporated a slightly more contemporary folk rock feel in a nod to the changing tastes. He never chased trends in a way that felt desperate or inauthentic, but he wasn't completely stuck in the past either. He understood that music had to evolve. His personal life brought profound joys that balanced the challenges of the fickle music industry. Fatherhood was a role he cherished. He was deeply involved in the life of his son, Tad, and often spoke with pride about their bond. He taught Tad his first guitar chords, sitting by the fireside in their Nashville home, passing down the musical gift that had defined his own life. This private, domestic side of Roy stood in quiet contrast to his public persona. As his recording career slowed, he dabbled in other creative ventures. He proved to be a natural actor, his easy charm translating well to the screen. He made several appearances in films and television shows, most notably in the acclaimed 1996 film The People vs. Larry Flynt, where he was perfectly cast as an Opry performer. The role was a wink to his own legacy, bringing his authentic presence to a major Hollywood production. Still, the relentless glare of the spotlight continued to dim. The rise of pop country hybrids in the 80s and the new traditionalist wave, led by artists like Randy Travis and George Strait, further pushed Roy's generation into the background. Through it all, his loyalty to the Grand Ole Opry never wavered. He remained a proud and active member well into the 1990s, his voice, though weathered by age, holding its distinctive strength and smoothness. He was a living link to the Opry's golden age, a respected elder who had seen it all. The turn of the millennium brought with it serious health struggles. Roy began a quiet battle with emphysema and lung cancer, ailments likely tied to a lifetime of smoking, a common vice in the smoke-filled honky-tonks and backstage green rooms of his youth. He fought the illnesses with the same quiet dignity that had characterized his entire life, rarely publicizing his pain or seeking sympathy. He continued to make Opry appearances whenever his health permitted, his commitment to the institution absolute. On September 23, 2004, at the age of 74, Roy Drusky passed away in a Nashville nursing home, surrounded by his loving family. His obituary in the New York Times dutifully noted his remarkable 46-year tenure at the Opry and his string of hits, but the broader fanfare was muted. There were no massive public tributes, no state funeral-like processions, and most glaringly, no posthumous induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Roy slipped away from the world much as he had lived in it, gracefully, gently, and without demanding the spotlight. H's tale is one of quiet resilience. Rising from the poverty of the Depression-era South, navigating the fickle currents of the music industry, and battling illness at the end of his life, he did it all without a trace of bitterness. He teaches us that dignity and grace are choices. Politically, in a subtle yet profound way, Roy represented the decent working-class South. His songs often touched on the everyday heartaches of ordinary people, love, loss, temptation, regret, without resorting to overt social or political commentary. He gave voice to the quiet struggles of his listeners. Eyewitness accounts from his peers at the Grand Ole Opry consistently paint a picture of Roy as a mentor and a calming force backstage. Jeannie Seeley, a fellow Opry star and close friend, shared a touching tribute after his passing in 2004. Roy was like a big brother to all of us. I remember being so nervous before my first big performance on the Opry stage. He saw the fear in my eyes, came over, put a hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "Just sing from the heart, darling. That's all they want from you." His kindness stuck with me my whole career. Today, in a musical era dominated by auto-tuned vocals, social media spectacle, and algorithm-driven fame, Roy's authentic, unadorned voice serves as a powerful reminder of music's raw emotional power. We learn from his quiet fade that fame is fleeting, but true impact endures in less visible ways. His role as the Opry's MC shaped generations of performers, instilling in them a sense of professionalism, warmth, and respect for the stage. As we wrap this up, let's go back to that dusty attic. Hold that record sleeve in your hands. Don't think of Roy Drusky as a forgotten figure. Think of him as a quiet legend, a hidden treasure, whose voice still echoes with profound warmth and humanity if you just take a moment to listen. He showed us that the most profound artistry often lies not in thunderous acclaim, but in a simple, honest connection between one human voice and one human heart. In the great contradictions of his life, the soaring highs of his hit-making years, and the quiet lows of his later obscurity, Roy Drusky found a durable beauty in simplicity. His story leaves us with a thoughtful, resonant question. How many other quiet legends have we allowed to slip into the shadows? It's a reminder to cherish the smooth voices, the steady hands, and the gentle souls before the house lights go down for good.